Good morning and welcome back to Sun Up on 7. Just before the break, we had dynamic couch talk as usual, followed by your weather and sunrise for this morning. But while we're on the weather, we're here joined via Zoom with Dr. Daril Avila, who is the coordinator for the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, the Belize chapter, as well as Dr. Lennox Gladden, who is the Chief Climate Change Officer. And we're here discussing the upcoming National Climate Change Week, celebrated under the theme Enhancing Belize's Position in Global Climate Action, and also talking about activities planned. So, good morning to both of you, gentlemen. Are you hearing us? Are you seeing us?
Yes, you're good.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
So, how are you doing, Daril, this morning? How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, everybody. I'm doing well. Very much. Thank you all for having me on the show, and along with Dr. Gladden.
All right. Dr. Gladden, and how are you doing this morning?
Well, it has been a very interesting week, but I think myself and my team, we're doing okay.
All right, great to hear it. So, the upcoming National Climate Change Week. Let's discuss this week in particular. What are we looking forward to in this week? And before we even reach there, let's discuss the theme. What does that mean for our Belizean people?
Well, rightly stated earlier, the theme itself encompasses that level of true engagement, right? Because we want to highlight not only the impacts of climate change nationally, but we want to take into consideration how climate change and its impacts affects livelihoods, and have the local communities, the indigenous communities, and based on the agenda, the youths actually weighing in on what is happening within their communities and how it is affecting the various demographics.
All right.
I love that. And so now, thinking about this impactful, encompassing, inclusive theme, how can this trickle now into the activities? Will there be young people really being a part and trailblazing? Like, what can we say, I can be a part of this, whether it be virtual or physical? I want to be able to celebrate the climate and understand there's change that needs to be done.
Okay, so just a quick correction. It's an ongoing climate change week. We started since Tuesday of this week.
Okay.
Of course, having the local and indigenous people's engagement and sensitization session yesterday as well, and the day before that, we looked at the youth negotiators, and it goes back to what you asked earlier. How do we have meaningful engagement, right? Meaningful collaboration to get some of these issues placed in the forefront, not only for the ministry itself, not only for government, but the entire society to be a little bit more aware of climate actions taking place, climate impacts taking place. But rightly stated, the youths are at the forefront of this climate change week. It is the first climate change week that the country has ever formulated and executing on the behalf of the ministry and government proper. So it's important.
So, Daril, I want to bring you into this conversation. Tell me a little bit about why is it so important? You know, we talked about the youth, we talked about, them being in the forefront with this, but why is it so important to include youth in the decision-making process when it comes to our climate? Why is it necessary to make sure they're educated as well as they're giving their opinions on how we can move forward?
Definitely. As youths, you want to, to give a brief statistic, we constitute to over 35% of the population, looking at it regionally, within the Caribbean. So it's very much important for us to know and be aware of some of these climate actions and the policies that are being taken place, or, that are being possessed on the resources here in Belize. Also with that, our participation in decision-making process and shaping the future, has in the past has been very much disregarded by governing systems here in Belize. So it's very much, it's a big start, for us to get more youths involved in the decision-making process.
Definitely. I know there's a lot of young people I've worked with before when it comes to climate change that feel like, they can't work with an entity or so because sometimes they don't listen to you, they don't really want to do, and they don't work on the direction that you want to work. Can you speak to young people, especially, as your position coordinating
Right.
when it comes to, the youth environment network in Belize and this chapter? How can we find a balance? And how can young people understand or speak on how young people can understand where we can find a balance and how we can work together to move forward? We don't have to work in a silos. Like, I don't have to do it by my own and then you to do it by your own. Like, it's important to make us all come together to do this.
Definitely. Speaking to the youth of Belize today, we are going to be the one that will inherit the earth, and its natural resources. We are going to be the one that we need to find adaptive methods to be able to find a balance and find some common grounds with the climate issues that we face, here, not only in Belize, but, within the Caribbean region as well. And we need to ask for appropriate assistance
Yes.
through this time, in order for us to be able to see our reality of adapting to this climate crisis, on many levels.
Yeah.
Along with that, we need to believe the effectiveness of these assistance will be significantly, hopefully, increase as we go along collaborating with different institutional networks, community-based organizations, NGOs, government, in order for us to see, effective change and for us to adapt to, this climate crisis that we're talking about.
Right. I want to direct this question to Dr. Gladden now. We're talking about enhancing Belize's position in global climate action. Now, we understand as a small island, or developing nation, as they call us, how hard of a fight that we have to fight in order to actually be heard on the global stage when we have such huge emitters such as China and Russia and those places like that. Can you speak about the uphill battle that we need to do, and why is it significant that each and every one of us play a part in this?
Okay, and I think I'll make reference to the conference of the parties, whereby we try our best to make our national voices heard, also regional voices heard, to some of, like, as you mentioned, some of the more larger emitters. It is a challenge because, first of all, when you look at it's sometimes a capacity issue to have certain dialogues in certain contexts, in certain arenas, especially when, at this point, developed countries, they are facing a climate crisis as well. So how can we now ask them for resources, for example, for flooding, when recently you noticed that Hurricane Ian went through Florida, caused massive flooding. So now we're on par. The challenge in asking for not only financial assistance, but also technical assistance is, you rightly said, we are a developing country, negligible as it relates to our emissions. But what is important, although that challenge exists, it is important nationally to have a common request, to put it simply. But that common request comes back down to sensitization, comes back down to coordination, comes back down to collaboration. Right? The youths, as Mr. Avila stated earlier, were somewhat disenfranchised in the process. Right? So through this whole climate change week, we want to give them we want to give them a seat at the table, right? To be able to dialogue with some of the decision makers, dialogue with the policymakers and say, listen, and it's not only the youth, but also the local communities. These are some of our issues that we're facing, not only now, but historically. We're losing livelihoods, we're losing culture as a result of the impacts of climate change. So when you go and negotiate with the developed countries, these larger emitters, these are things that, as a country, we're going to say, listen, this is what is impacting the Belizean people, right? So to have something more credible, something more tangible, not only from reflecting most on the technical jargon as it relates to the impacts of climate change, which we all know.
Right.
I can clearly see that. What I think is super important for us to understand too as well, Dr. Gladden, is that beyond just this week, you mentioned that, we started from Tuesday, but beyond just the week, I'd really want people to understand how important it is to be involved in climate change and how to connect with you. So is there any way beyond, just the week here that we're having activities and we're including young people and we're making sure everything happens, how can people connect? What is their part to play, Is there any projects that they can be able to, check on your Facebook page? What can they do to be a part of the change that we need, not just for the week, but in general, all throughout the year?
Okay, so as it relates to that level of connectivity and that level of collaboration, and it was also mentioned earlier and it was recommended that we do have our Facebook page, we do have our website. We encourage everyone, basically, the whole of society, to engage with us because there's a lot of support out there. We can assist with matchmaking. The office itself is the national designated entity for the Climate Change Technology Center and Network. We're also the focal point for the UNFCCC. So there's a lot of resources that we can assist with mobilizing for some of the smaller initiatives. So again, for access, we do have our Facebook page. And this is a first step, right? Because some of the entities, some of the youth groups, some of the community activists, we weren't aware of that, right? So this is a first step to something that it is going to be a very long and joyous process to offer that level of collaboration and support from the National Climate Change Office and from the ministry on a whole.
I love it. And so as we're wrapping up this segment, I really want to invite Daril, as a young person, tell us for the young people out there, why, or give them the activities specifically that they should be engaging in for this week when we come to the idea of enhancing Belize's position in global climate action. What is one specific thing that they need to do? They're hearing this conversation right now and they need to do.
You mentioned to say one word. However, I'll be sharing 2 words.
Give me brata and I beg.
Definitely, as young people, we need to understand or be aware through education and awareness of the conservation and protection of our natural resources.
Yes.
Along with that, we need to integrate ourselves in community action in order for us to, bring along, a friend and your family members, So it starts from, starts from yourself, and you can be able to inspire and instill change, along the way as as you get involved more in community-led initiatives, or but being aware of what's happening to our natural resources and being aware of how we can play a part in protecting it, by simple means. That's what I have for the youths today. That's how we can live about.
Definitely.
I always think education is one of the most powerful tools you can even have, because it starts first with educating yourself and then it trickles on to other people, your actions. And I like how you talk about bringing people along, because a lot of times we want to try fight the good fight by ourselves. No, man, bring my family, make we talk the talk. If you're not my friend, you will come do the cleanup with me. If you're not my friend, you will come do the project with me. We will come and collaborate together, because I'm not just one-man island. All are we in this island, all are we in this Belize together.
And just something that comes in my mind, you said, Daril, that it starts from you, it spreads it spreads outwards. And you know what, I fully agree with that. I mean, as for myself, personally speaking, is that I don't want any people where if I have trash in my, on me as a person, you gotta see my pockets filled up. If I have on a hoodie, my pockets are my hoodie filled up with garbage until I reach home, then I put it in the garbage. But I think outward spreading, I think we need to start looking into some enforcement of laws because, for, like I told you the other morning, Renata, coming back from Belmopan the other day, just seeing this boy get off the bus, just emptying his school bag filled with all chips bag, ideal bag, all of those things. So I had to stop and just like, what? We need enforcement because only these things can help us as well, protecting our environment as we go along. And we need to spread that out. So, I mean, yeah, that is something I really appreciate those words, Daril.
Could I also mention one thing?
Yeah.
On what you said, the key elements for conservation and protection of our natural resources, not only in Belize but in the Caribbean region. We are a region that we have been experiencing a lot of the effects of the climate crisis on us. Our common example was from the hurricane that hit Nicaragua last weekend, and the floodings and what's not has been occurring throughout Central America. But with that said, as youths, those are the foundations of strategies to implement and promote, functional cooperation among youth organization, community-led based organization, by through the indigenous population, like what Dr. Gladden said. So we need to use these strategies in order for us to, promote and to focus on the environment and the developmental issues that we face here in the country.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Starts from us.
It starts from us. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Gladden, and thank you, Daril, for being here, for giving us these wise words, and also showing and allowing people to know the platforms that they can access. That they need to go and follow the Facebook page. They need to go and access the website. Guys, educate yourself. Little things, or ask questions. I'm sure they have no problem with you to message him on the Facebook page. They ask 1,000,001 questions because it shows your enthusiasm to know what's happening in your country. So ask the questions, bring people along, and let's make it happen. But thank you for this incredible conversation, and continue to do an amazing work that we need to make our country climate friendly and moving on with prosperity.
Right.
Thanks as well.
And with that, guys, we go to our next commercial break. And when we are back, we'll be having another dynamic conversation. Stay tuned.